Good morning, friends. This is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I hope that you had a great, restful Saturday evening. And I hope that when you woke, you were very thankful for this new day, this new beautiful day with sunshine. I have my shade pulled a little bit because it's just blaring in. It's not really warm out, but it's cool, warm enough that you can go out with a sweater vest or something like that. Or a fleece vest, that's usually what I wear, flannels, whatever. What I want to talk today about, and today's my Sunday reflection, so that those of you who do not wish to hear anything scripturally, I'm just giving you a heads up. But I do hope that you stay, because I think sometimes things that we all share, and because I learn from non-Christians as much as they hopefully will learn from me. So I hope you stay, and I hope you gain some understanding of why my faith is so important to me. So much is being said about the food, and I know I've talked about this before, but I've been digging into this and saying, God, what is going on? And I say this every single day, but there is a lot of fear out there, and rightly so. I was listening to a farmer last night, and he was talking about, because he's in the Midwest, where there is a lot of drought. And if you go online, you can find maps with where the drought is all around the world. So a lot of the places that we get our sources from, they're struggling. Now, what does that mean? My shelves here in New England at the stores are full. The prices have gone up. I used to be able to get a pound of dried beans or peas, dried green peas, for like 50 cents. They're up over $1 now. And do I use them? Yeah, I put them in stews. I make pea soup. I use them for different things. And then I like the other legumes and stuff because I use them in salads. You can make powder out of some of these beans and legumes too. And I have always had, like yesterday when I was making the apple crisp for my husband, I ran out of brown sugar in my container. So I had to go get my stored bag of brown sugar, which means I have to go get a new bag of brown sugar. So I'm not looking forward to it because I know the price has gone up. And that's why many of us try to have a backup on our shelves. So when I go, I might get 2, just so that I have it when things get tough. Now, will things get tough? I can't guarantee one way or the other, because God knows. And that's my faith. It's like, okay, God, is this Y2K over again? And I don't think so, because Y2K was about the grid going down back then and everything shutting down and nobody could move. They're talking about that again, but in addition to that, we have the droughts. And we have animals that, because of the drought, there's not enough feed for the cows and for the other animals. Now, I realize that some people that believe that the problems with our earth is because of the animals, which, you guys, I don't believe that. Cows have had I can't even say the word. Cows have been farting for a long time, okay? Do we have more? Yeah, probably. But you know what? We have more people to feed. I just don't understand. That concept has not reached me. I just can't understand it. And I think sometimes humans are worse than the cows. So that being said, let's move on. But we've lost sight of reality. Will we have shortages in food? From what I'm understanding, from what I'm hearing from farmers who try to grow these crops for us, from homestead farmers trying to grow it and their crops are dying, yeah, I see that we're going to have a problem. But God's word says he is going to provide. Now, we might not have a Joseph in our presence right now in terms of not the guy that is leading our country. I'm talking about Joseph, the coat of many colors. For many of you, that's how you remember him. He was in charge of the grain mills. He was in charge of all of this, and he stored up for a time such as what we're entering, so that nobody would go hungry. Now, our government is supposed to be having stores for us so that we wouldn't go through times of hardships like this. So I'm going to try to keep my own personal opinion out of this so it's not political. But because those things are not happening, and instead we are creating food, we are making food that we have food in the United States that the UK would not allow because of the dangers of what it could be for their people. They won't allow these poisons in their food because they care about their people. Here in the United States, many of those foods that are on our shelf, the packaged foods, have ingredients that we should not be consuming. And that's why when I say, look at the ingredients. If you don't understand the word, you need to look it up. So go in your cupboard and say, what does this mean? Look at it all. And if it means nothing to you because the food tastes great, you know what? That's fine. You do what you feel is necessary, and maybe that's the way God is providing for you right now. You know, I think the craziness in the past couple of years, I got to a point where it's like, God, just make me go to sleep and not wake up. I was like that for 2 years. This past January, I finally woke up from my realizing that God wasn't going to let me go to sleep and miss out. Miss out on all this. Nope, God wanted me to wake up for all this. And then he encouraged me to get chickens. Yeah, I had to get up and go out in the cold to feed those guys. Gals, excuse me, they're girls. He's given me something. I mean, we don't have a flock of chickens to feed the world. We have enough chickens so that hopefully they will begin to start laying eggs and they will feed us. And where we can, we might be able to help others. Or maybe we'll be able to sell some because they produce enough that we could help others but also help ourselves. And people, I know that times are rough. People will not be taking advantage of you if they charge you for their eggs. I'm saying this because when I was making hundreds and hundreds of face masks, and I sold some, most of them were donated. I sold hundreds. And what I got from some people, they said, you shouldn't be charging. During these times where people need to be together, you should be giving them away free. And I'm like, okie dokie. I said, you don't have to have my masks. There's other people out there that are making them for free. But you see, I was making them because I was drawn to make them for the healthcare providers and stuff. But I decided that I would sell some to offset that. What is so wrong about doing that? I want you to ask yourself, why would you say that that's selfish? Because the same thing is going to come along when there's no eggs on the shelf, or they're so expensive on the shelf that you can't afford. You have to choose between milk or eggs. There's nothing wrong with a homesteader or a small family that has a few extra eggs if you give them some money to pay for those eggs. There is nothing wrong with that. So am I lecturing? Yeah, because people always want me to do things for free. Even when I ran my sewing business, it was like, well, you could do this, you know, you could do this cause, you could do this. I'll give you this for free if you will do this for free. It's like, I don't want it. It's not where my calling is. I believe that each of us have an avenue in which we can give from ourselves in love towards others. I love giving to people, but I love giving to people who appreciate that. You know what? God appreciates being able to give to those who appreciate Him. And that's what we have lost faith in. We lost our faith in believing that God is going to provide for us. We have gotten to a point where all we do is we acknowledge our works. And the competition is fierce in the workforce. I've experienced it over a number of jobs. And you experience it when you're working for somebody and you're training somebody, and all of a sudden they get promoted up above you. It's like, really? I've been here so long? It happens. And as I've gotten older, I got stronger, and I speak up more than people want me to. And that's another thing, is people don't want you to speak up for what is right. You know what? I don't care anymore. If you don't like that I speak up, then that is really your insecurity. That is really your problem. Because we are human beings. We are not here to be abused or to abuse others. And even though there is abuse from the moment children are born to when they get married with or whatever, there is abuse happening everywhere. But in our workforce too, in churches even, there is abuse in every aspect. And by the way, that abuse that I'm talking about is not the thing that we all know that goes on in a particular denomination, because actually that happens in a lot of denominations. But I'm talking about the abuse of making people feel bad about their circumstances, or not including the different classes. Like the wealthy people will not invite the lower people to socialize and stuff, and that's horrible. You know what? We're here to build each other up. So let's start doing that. Now in Jeremiah chapter 5, it is known that the scriptures kind of talk about how the people did not acknowledge God's provision. So when your needs are met through your work, through your skills and your efforts, you forget that God was a part of that. God gave you those skills. God gave you that talent. If you're at a work where somebody pays you, God gave you that job. If you don't like it, you need to seek God and have Him help you find another one. That's how my husband found his job. We did a lot of praying for a long time. When your needs are met, where you are solely depending on your own works in place of your faithfulness in God, you fail to find joy, fulfillment, and peace in your life. Think about it. If you're not giving God the glory for your job, if you're not giving God the glory for, I got tomatoes from somebody, and it was like, I don't like cherry tomatoes, but you know what? I made food out of it because they didn't have the time to do it and they thought enough of me. That was joyful. It was hard work. But you know, when God gives you something, whether it's your job, whether He gives you tomatoes that you don't, I mean, cherry tomatoes make great tomato paste and it makes great tomato sauce. So I wasn't complaining about that, but they're so little. But you make what you can. You make the best of your situation. And I joke about cherry tomatoes because that's what I get for volunteer tomatoes all the time. Because as I put the plants in the compost, that seems to be the thing that perks up out there. But sometimes our jobs are hard. We might love our job, but there's aspects of it that we don't like. I haven't heard my husband complain yet, so I'm kind of thankful for that. But we need to understand that even when we have a garden, we have our chickens, we have, things that we have to take care of, that takes work. God's not sending Jesus down to do all that work for us. He's not sending the disciples down to work for us. We are God's servant, and we are the ones to work, whether it's at a job, in the house, keeping it clean, keeping it tidy, keeping things in order. And I have some areas that I need to get a little bit tighter. My sewing areas, like I've just been doing so much that it's just like, okay. But we have responsibilities. And we take so much joy when things are the way they need to be. The theme of the people in Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah, is that God's people were losing their faith in his provision. And then they started oppressing each other. You know, here is a country, there's lots of oppression happening. And to avoid the political aspect, I'm not going to share my viewpoint on a lot of things that have occurred over the last 2-3 years. It's been awful. And that's what's happening. Good citizens are being oppressed. Our rights are being taken away. We're being mistreated in different situations. And, you know, I say we because it's a lot of us. So how do I smile? It's just like, you know what? The time will come when God's glory is going to shine. Now, I know that God loves me. You know, I don't know if I'm going to have a horrible future, a dangerous future, an exciting future, or a peaceful future. I don't know what God's design is for me. I go day by day. I ask him for his guidance, even when I come here and I talk on here, because I don't know what his purpose is. I do know that his purpose is for me to have joy. And during the couple of years until January, I felt defeated. And I have shared this before. I really didn't want to live. I didn't want to kill myself. I didn't want to do any of that. And all those people who said, hey, if you're not doing well, call me. Depressed people do not reach out. They don't. They don't reach out. They just kind of like, I don't want to be a burden. Because at that point, during that time, I felt like a burden. And I'll tell you why. Because of how I was treated, how the healthcare system was treating everybody. I was defeated. And I felt defeated because of how people were talking to one another. Because we don't talk together to use our ears to listen, we use our mouth to share our views. And our views are the only right views. And that was hurting me because people were saying, even if somebody had a health reason for not getting a vaccine, they were telling them, I hope you die. Really? That's what was getting me down, because we had hatefulness. But you know what? Hatefulness was happening on both extremes. Christian brothers and sisters were being hateful. Other people who were non-Christians were being hateful. And I was just like, I can't do this. Now, can I be hateful? Yeah. Can I be mean? Yeah. We're all human. We can do things. And sometimes I say things that are probably not appropriate. Yeah, I do. Once in a while. See, one thing you're going to get from me is I'm not better than anybody. It's just that during that time, and the tears are welling up in me right now because that was a painful time. It wasn't my husband. It wasn't my family. It was the world. There was hope in the world before. And then all of a sudden, this all happens. Nobody's telling people the truth. And I'm not saying what side I believe. I agree with science. But I also believe that we need to be transparent. And there is a lot of hurt. And have I forgiven? You know, for the most part, I have. But when I go into a facility and they slap my hand because I take the wrong mask, I'm so over it, because that's a sign that people are still better than others. And I mean, I wear a cloth mask because of how those masks affect my skin, number one. Number two, those masks are not sealed around my face. If I want to protect myself from germs that might be floating around, and trust me, even in a healthcare facility, they are. I don't want to be slapped on the hand because I grabbed the wrong mask. I don't want to be yelled at. And these are things that I encountered. That was painful. And now I just like, you know what? I'm not taking it. You know, the last girl who slapped my hand, I looked at her and she started talking to somebody on the phone, and I said, excuse me? Because she was talking about me in a very negative way. I said, excuse me? She did not like that. I didn't have a smile on. I think I had kind of like, excuse me. I had that mother look. We've turned into a society that is self-righteous. We're not kind. And I want to be kind. It took me there was a portion during that time I decided I wasn't going to give to anybody ever again. I really did. I'm like, people don't care. People are mean. Why should I do things for others when all they are mean people? And then as this past January rolled around, God opened my heart. He opened my mind. He said, Laura, that's not who I designed you to be. I designed you to be the person you've always been. Not perfect, but you have a heart that desires to give. And I've given you discernment to know when it's the right time and the right person. So don't stop being the person that I love you for who you are. You see, God tells us that he loves us. No, I'm not talking to somebody out in the air. For those of you who do not understand, God does speak to me. And he doesn't write on a whiteboard. And there are times that I wait a long time to hear his answer. There's times that I sit and I wait. My husband and I, there are times that he and I don't see eye to eye. And so I will share with him what's going on. And sometimes in the past, we would end up in an argument. And it's really not worth an argument because God hasn't designed as a couple to always agree. He wants us to work together so that we see the same thing together. So my job is to be patient when there's something I truly feel that God is telling me. And sometimes you have to sit back and realize that, okay, he has to experience what I'm telling him. And when he has, my kids have even told me growing up, they go, you know, I'll tell them, you know, you got to be really careful around this person. And they were like, they thought it was just being mean. And then they told me, you always knew. I said, yeah, I don't know what it is, that discernment and stuff. There's just something about deceitful, mean, and most of the kids were great. It was how their parents were treating them sometimes. And how we treat our children can be how they are as a human being. So anyway, in Jeremiah, what was happening then is happening now. Everybody's out working, doing their job. They're better than everybody else. And they're not stopping to say, God gave me this job. They're not stopping to say that I was fortunate not to get hurt by the vaccine or not get the virus. People have forgotten that God's hand is in each of our lives every day. And we've forgotten that. In Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 6, they refused to know me, says the Lord. Therefore, their prosperity fades away. God wants so much for us, and yet people have forgotten. You don't have a relationship with God. More so if you are a Christian, if your relationship isn't strong and that you share that faith, I'm not saying go on the street corner and share the gospel. Through your words, through your actions, that's how you share God's love. But you also share it by making sure you spend time with God. Whether it's you praying on the way to work, whether it's reading your Bible, however you deem necessary to worship God daily, not just Sunday. That's what God needs from all of us. In Jeremiah 9:10 it says, the lowing cattle is not heard. Hold on. What he's saying is the people and the other animals, they're leaving. Because you see, the lowly people are not being heard. They're going to die away, or they're going to walk away. And that's, for me, I've kind of like, when people are getting to where they're arguing amongst themselves, those of us who are just saying enough is enough, we're kind of backing up, because enough is enough. People can help each other, and I'm talking about the government, not to get political. I hate politics, but they should be helping our country, because that's their job. If you're not going to help your family, and the people of this country are their family, and we're the one who pay taxes to support them so that they can lead us, when they don't do what's in our best interest, there's something wrong. There is something totally wrong. Now, I'm not saying that what's gone on over the last 2.5 years, they haven't done anything. Because I think a lot of times what's in the news, and it's been in the past, both administrations in the past 4 or 5 years, okay, 6 years, whatever. What's in the media is not necessarily everything of truth. So that's why when I hear what's going on, I have to dig a little bit further and say, okay, how true is this? And quite honestly, I think some of us as Christians need to behave ourselves. Making fun of people. When I see somebody fall, I kind of like, oh, I wonder what is going on. Could be fatigue. It could be illness. It could be anything. And that's not our place to make fun. So stop it. I mean, David and I can make fun of each other, and sometimes some situations we can kind of laugh about it, and it hurts. But I'm talking about, I have fallen upstairs coming in from the backyard. Broke my glasses once, and that was a long time ago. That was when I realized, that's when I found out that I had Lyme disease and stuff, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. Once I learned more about Lyme. I mean, my husband didn't laugh at me. I mean, I guess as you get older, you don't laugh at an older person. You just laugh at the kids when they make mistakes like that, even though it hurts. But I've learned to laugh at myself. So where am I going with this? I think we need to stop and say, okay, God, where is our world going? As the food situation changes, as the food becomes more scarce, like I said, we don't have a Joseph taking care of the foods. We have ourselves, because our country is not looking out for us. There's foods that are being given out to people, and it's nutritious, but there's a lot of additives in there. I would like to believe that, and honestly, I have foods in my house that have additives. I'm not, how do you, it's just part of life. Crackers, I don't make my own crackers, so I know there's additives in it. I try to buy crackers that are not as full as others. But we need to teach people how to survive with nutrition. When our food source is cereal for dinner, I'm not saying occasionally, cereal for dinner every night, or ice cream and chips, whatever it is, all these fast foods that are pleasurable foods. When we forget to consume all the nutrients from the grains, from the fruits and the God put these foods on our earth so that we could survive, so that we could eat, because He knew our bodies needed nourishment. Nourishment does not grow in a box. You know, we don't see boxes of Cheetos on trees or bags. I guess Cheetos come in bags. That's how long it's been since I bought those. I think that's something my husband used to like. Yeah, Cheetos are like a chip. Sorry, my brain had to think about this. This junk food does not grow on trees. The cookies I make don't grow on trees, but I do like the fact that I make them from the flour, from the sugar. You know, I do my best. Even though for years before, when my kids were young, I was buying whatever was out there in terms of flour, sugar, and whatever. And now I've gone organic and all that kind of stuff. Organic flour. This is not because I'm better than anybody else. I just like, even back then, I preferred to make things at home. That's just, God designed me that way, and I love it. And I give credit to my granny and my grandmother because they were women who wanted to take care of their families. I had one grandmother who wouldn't put calories in her cookies. I think I might have shared this early on when I was doing, when I started, when I was really, really quiet and nobody could hear me. One time I was there with David, we were dating, and she was trying to push me to have some cookies. And, you know, I was very weight conscious. It was how I was brought up. And so I said, no, I can't because of the calories and I would gain weight. And she goes, honey, I don't put calories in my cookies. I'm like, you don't? David and I laughed for days. We still laugh at it. I mean, we've been dating we started dating like 45 years ago and been married a little over 42 years. We still laugh about that incident. And I mean, she's in heaven. She's probably looking down and just smiling that I made their day. And you know what? She did. And she probably knew at that time because she just laughed and she just went about her way. There's no calories in this because I don't put calories in mine. And then she went off to do something else. Those are the moments to treasure. But you know what? That's the way we need to be as a society of, and it's not just women. We need to be caring in where we want to give to others. We generously. So we have jobs, like in my sewing business, I focused on my business. And I mentioned that sometimes people say, oh, I'll give you this dress if you could convert it to this as a donation for. I said, no, I don't want to do that. But even though I didn't do that, what they didn't understand is I gave a lot to others without expectation. I didn't do, you know, I just didn't think it was appropriate for people to tell me how to use my time. As time allowed, I was able to give. As God placed something on my heart, that's when I give. And there's people that I give to because they are a part of my life and I want to treat them like family because I love them, because I see a need. And that's how God designed us to give, not out of guilt. But it's not just women who bake. I give food away too. It's not people who bake, all these womanly chores, these female expectations, but it's also men. Men need to be giving in service to God as well. We need to help one another. And, you know, and it's not just in church families, because even in church families, they don't help one another all the time. It depends on who you are, if you're in this clique. And sadly, that's true. So men can help widows, you know, making sure that their car is in good repair or driving them or whatever. Women can help them as well. We can help one another. And men shouldn't feel like they have to do things on their own. And my husband, I mean, his back isn't that great. He's gotten older. He can't do what he used to do. So I just told him, because who was going to help him pull them out of his window? We don't know. I think we could have asked one of our neighbors to help, but their schedules are very different and stuff. So my husband just does it on his own. And I said, honey, you need to get help. So instead, I got covers for those air conditioners because I love my husband and I don't want him in pain. And I don't want to be in pain. So we're all doing stuff that we shouldn't be doing as we get older. But we should be, as a society, as Christians, and it doesn't matter what denomination, we should be reaching out and saying, hey, is there something I can do for you? And, you know, the one thing that has become very popular is announcing on Facebook what you did for somebody. We don't need to do that either. I know when I was making the mask, I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it for glorification. I was part of a system that, and it became a system of helping others. And what a lot of people didn't understand is how much energy that took out of me. And I'm sure it took energy out of a lot of people, because a lot of people stopped making them because it was just too much. To sit at the sewing machine making the same thing over and over, it hurt. Our bodies were tired. So I just want to say that we have the opportunity to be better. I wanted to share something else. We're going to take Luke chapter 12, verses 22 through till I end. I think I'm going to go through 32, so 10 verses. Can you hang in there? And he said to his disciples, for this reason I say to you, do not worry about your life as to what you will eat, nor for your body as to what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, they have no storeroom nor barn, and yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than them? And I know we have people like me who feed the birds, but that's not what he's talking about. Those birds would find food whether I put bird feeders out there or not. And which of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his lifespan? When you have worry and you stress, it actually shortens your lifespan. If then you cannot do even a very little thing, why do you worry about other matters? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, but I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his glory clothed himself like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass in the field, which is alive, and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more will he clothe you, you men of little faith? God's telling us that we are not faithful when we fear. And do not seek what you will eat and what you will drink, and do not keep worrying. God's talking to me here too. For all these things the nation of the world eagerly seek, but your Father knows that you need these things. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Seeking his kingdom is seeking God. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has chosen gladly to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to charity. Make yourself money belts which do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I believe that God is telling us to clothe us in spirit, to clothe us in faith, to clothe our hearts. And yes, our bodies need clothing, and everybody has more than enough. I know I have more than enough. He also wants us, that belt that he's talking about, a money belt, he's talking about that we use our talents, our gifts, our skills, so that we can provide for ourselves, but also provide for others and to his kingdom. That's my take on this. And you can share your viewpoints as well, those of you who know your Bible, you know, because I think sometimes we read the Bible differently than one another. But I also believe that God is asking us to have faith in Him. You know, I kind of would like to see that even though we have been given warnings about food shortages, we've already been told in writing that our electric bill's going up 70%. I just can't wait. I can wait. We have been told that all these different things are going up. I don't want to believe it. I want to believe that something's going to change. But you know what needs to change first? I'm not lecturing, and I know that might be coming out that way. What needs to change is our heart, our ability to give, and our ability to stand up and say no, our ability to fight back. Now, you can take fighting back in any measure that you want, because if the world goes nuts, people will have to defend their goods or defend their home or whatever it is you need to defend. Parents have to defend their children every single day. If you go to the grocery store with your little ones, you have to be on guard. Do you know how stressful that is for a mom? I know when I was bringing my kids to the stores, and my kids are in their 30s, that was scary. I was always looking around. I made sure if I parked in a garage, it was nowhere near where there was other weird cars. And if there was a weird car, I would go back into wherever I was and ask somebody to come out with me. 30 years. And it's getting worse. Can you imagine the fear on these single moms? There's a lot of single moms out there, and they are tough cookies. They will fight to the death for their children. But a lot of children get lost. And my heart's passion is for kids. Anytime I talk about kids, that's where my heart is. Because, you know, we are adults. We can fight our own battles. But we got to stop kicking and screaming and whining. We need to fight back with our words, not yelling when inappropriate. We need to fight back and say no to stuff. Our city government is robbing us blind. Do you know, I read the other day, or did I hear it? Our taxes amount to more than half of what we spend on other things. Oh gosh, healthcare is really high. And I'll tell you, somebody told me the other day, because I don't consider myself scared, and I really am not, but she said, but you are in fear. I said, not really. I said, what I am is I'm concerned about where our world is going. And to be concerned about where our world is going, it comes across as if I'm afraid. But being concerned isn't necessarily a fear. What it is maybe it is a fear of how I will have to change to adapt to protect my family, my home, my grandchildren. I don't want them to have a horrible childhood. I want them to experience life, to enjoy life. We're changing it. I want them to have good food in their bellies. I want them to, be taught in the educational system things of value, things of history, things that make a difference, and teach them skills. And our schools are taking all of this away. Not all of them. And so I would just like to see that their world, their future, is better than what I had. Because, the world should be getting better. From the 1800s, 1600s, our world should be better. And yet it seems like we move forward and then we go back, and we go forward and we go back. And I guess that's just part of history. And we're just in a very odd area. But right now, folks, my reflection was, how do I talk about this without bringing people down? I don't want to. I want to encourage you that it's okay to say no. It's not okay not to pay your taxes, by the way. In God says pay Caesar his dues. We may not like it, but we are responsible for our taxes. But you don't have to do some stuff that you have the ability to say no to. I'm not going to go into a long list. But if something's not right with you, you can say no. I wouldn't scream and yell at people like they did at the onset of this pandemic. The pandemic that we had wasn't the virus. It was the mean spirit that came out from underneath the surface of our earth. It was horrid, and it's still alive. So folks, I ask that you pray about this. Pray that you can be the light. Pray that you can be the joy. Pray that you can be the change that needs to happen. And if the change doesn't happen and there's nothing we can do, be the person of encouragement so that others can find joy during these hard times. So friends, I hope that you have a beautiful Sunday. Look to the beautiful skies. We got sun outside. We still have color in the trees. Look at what you have and be thankful. Do not be wasteful. Be wise with your spending. Be wise with your food consumption. All these things. But most importantly, be very generous with your kindness, with kind words, and with a generous spirit of giving to others. Whether it's just in comfort, a listening ear, it doesn't have to be material. Yet if you can provide something for somebody who needs it, then that's your gift. So understand your gifts, understand God more. He is amazing. And I feel bad for those who don't understand this passion I have. Actually, I don't feel bad. I just ask that you understand and that you accept me for who I am. Anyways, I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. I hope you get to outside to enjoy some of this gorgeous weather. And I hope that God abundantly blesses you. Have a great day.